And Sri, it's over to you.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Alan, for the opportunity. And the annoying thing that's coming up hopefully wasn't a reference to me or my slides. And I hope that whatever I cover here is interesting to you today. So first of all, it's great to see that there are so many parties that are interested in such gatherings and these conversations, and I certainly have been getting value from it. So glad to see that, and I do feel like from having been in multiple customer support, customer success type of events lately, there seems to be quite a bit of activity and energy around this whole topic. So glad to see it, and thank you for being here. So let me dive into the content itself, and hopefully you're able to see my screen share. You should be seeing a picture of people. And the reason I put this up is because, and this should not be a surprise to anybody, but customers are people, right? And people have needs. And as far as people's needs go, there has been plenty of research, and there's a famous framework called the Maslow's hierarchy that actually outlines what needs people have and how to sort of give structure to them in terms of various levels or types of needs. And stick with me here for a minute while I go through kind of this human psychology lesson here. But hopefully, many of you have seen this before, and it's well known that human needs at the very bottom layer start out with what we call physiological needs, right? These are the basic food, shelter, sustenance type of needs. Then we have what we call trust and safety needs, which is we want to feel safe, we want to feel secure, we want to feel like our life is not threatened in any way. Beyond that, you start to get into some layers that are more metaphysical, I'll say, or mental. And those are needs of, love and belonging, feeling like you are, you have good relationships, friendships and whatnot. Then you have these esteem needs of wanting to feel respected, wanting to feel like you are, free or strong or these notions in your head of kind of how you view yourself, right? And then lastly, the layer is called self-actualization, and seems like a fancy phrase, but what that's really saying is it's a need for all of us, where we all have this need of wanting to be the best version of ourselves, right? Am I living the best life I can possibly live? And am I kind of being the best version that I can be? And the reason I bring this up is because going back to my point that customers are people and people have needs, I feel that there is a parallel hierarchy of needs, which I call the customer hierarchy of needs. And there are a lot of similarities between these two things. And if you look at the bottom two layers, they're somewhat similar. So while human needs at the very bottom layer are these basic kind of food, shelter, physiological needs, at the very bottom for a customer, what they're seeking is functional and usability needs being met, right? Is your product or service doing the basic things that you promised that it would do, and is it delivering on that promise? The next layer is actually quite similar to the human need hierarchy, which is trust and safety. But in the product or service context, it's this idea that if I am doing business with your company or if I'm using your product, do I feel like it's a trustable company or brand? Do I feel like it's a safe product? Will you keep my information safe? Will you keep my, PII and other types of data safe? Am I going to cause harm by using your product in some way, for myself or for my company where I work? So that trust and safety need in terms of customers is also a legitimate layer. And then beyond that, actually, the rest of the three layers are exactly parallel to what we saw in the Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, which is that customers also want to feel these days like they belong to a community and to a larger cause, right? So we've heard, the focus on ESG or customers wanting to know about, are you a responsible business? How are you giving back to your community, and so on. So these factors also now come into play when a customer thinks about a business, a product, or a service, and how they feel about that product. And the esteem needs come into play when a customer is using your product or doing business with you. They're thinking about, how am I feeling in this experience of dealing with you as a company or a product or service? Do I feel proud? Do I feel happy? Am I embarrassed? Some great examples of this include companies like Apple and Tesla that have really figured out a way to operate in these upper tiers of customer needs, where you hear these phrases called, the Apple fanboy and fangirls, or Tesla never advertises, but has been able to achieve the revenue and customer base that they've been able to achieve. And some of these customers have almost sort of transcended into this feeling about the brand or company that has very little to do with what the product feature or functionality is. Of course, that matters, but it has sort of transcended into what is the vision and purpose of this company, and wanting to line up with that, right? Of wanting to do things that are good for the earth, or completely reimagining transportation for the world. So esteem needs completely a matter for the human, in the human hierarchy of needs, but I think they are equally important these days in the customer hierarchy of needs, because a lot of customers are making decisions about whom they interact with or do business with based on that. And then lastly, I think self-actualization also matters. And this is, again, the same concept of, am I able to live my best life possible by using your product or by doing business with you? So a simple question or example of that would be, by using your product, am I becoming more efficient in a way where I'm able to spend time with my family, or have enough, a low stress level so that I can, show up in a positive way? And these things matter. And the product experience, the customer experience that we're delivering, and all of the interactions that we have with our customers, whether it's support, success, or otherwise, I think absolutely matter. And this framework I share because what I feel and observe, and in the breakout, you can either agree or disagree with this, but I feel like we are often over-indexed on the bottom two layers of this customer hierarchy of needs, where we're working so hard to avoid disappointment that we're not really focusing on the upper layers that have the potential to deliver delight to our customers. So a feature functionality working or not, or a platform being stable and resilient and not being hacked, are table stakes requirements these days for customers. And I'm talking about software products, but I think equal analogies could be made for products that are not software, or even consumer products, or retail or whatnot, right? So if we're over-indexed on the bottom two layers, what I call that is, focus on disappointment avoidance. But I think there's a lot of opportunity to be focused on doing things that deliver delight in the upper layer, on the top three layers, which helps actually deliver delight to our customers, where if you're enabling them to feel like they're having an experience that they can feel proud, happy, and excited about, then that goes a very long way in terms of building emotional loyalty beyond simply the behavioral loyalty that you develop when you deliver a product that is high on feature functionality capability. So this is a framework really to kind of take and ask yourself, are the things that we're doing from an operational standpoint, whether it's in the support function, whether it's in success, or even in your products that you're building, you look at this and say, where am I really focused? Am I evenly balanced across these layers, or am I too over-indexed on one or more of these? And in some cases, you might even be over-indexed on the very top and maybe not so focused on the table stakes needs. So it's a framework that I wanted to introduce. And in our breakout, I think we'll be kind of diving into this a little bit more to talk about our own individual experiences and companies and where we are focused. Now, why is it important to delight customers? It's because if we look at kind of this classic 2x2 of high-low avoiding disappointment and high-low delivering delight, if you're in kind of the bottom left quadrant, you are in crisis state, in my opinion, where you're very low in terms of your ability to avoid disappointment, and you're not delivering delight either. If you're very high on delivering delight but low on avoiding disappointment, that's quite rare because you don't really get to delivering delight without delivering on the core feature functionality and capabilities. So that's kind of a rare state. Some do achieve it where the ability of their product or service kind of goes away because they're delighting customers in other ways and experiences that make up for that, but that is quite rare. But the most common state I think that most companies are in is in this, we give a lot of effort in terms of avoiding disappointment, but we're not necessarily focused on the delivering delight layers. And what I am positing is that the ideal state, being the upper right quadrant, is that we are balanced in both of those efforts. And this matters because, not because I'm saying it matters, but because there's plenty of research that's actually been done to prove that this actually results in good results in good outcomes for people as well as companies. And here are just a few facts. You can kind of read this for yourself, but the way I would frame this is, when people use your products and are happy about using your products in terms of CSAT or usage metrics, what they're showing you is behavioral loyalty, right? And behavioral loyalty, I think these days, is easy to replace because something else can come along that meets the bar in terms of the features, capabilities, functionality, etc. So that is not going to be enough to really keep your customers and get them to be buying more and stay loyal to you. What you need to add to that is what I call emotional or attitudinal loyalty. And that attitudinal or emotional loyalty comes from delivering delight. And research shows that when you have a combination of both of those, customers are 76% more likely to stay loyal to your business. They will spend more. They're likely to tell and talk about your brand with other folks and so on. While I'm here, I want to share a quick story. The other day, I was on the phone with a small bank, and just like any other customer support function, when you call in, it put me through an IVR, right? So it said click 1 for this, 2 for that, and I was about 3 or 4 choices deep in those selections. So I was waiting to speak with a live person, and right then I received a phone call that I had to take, and I cringed because I had put in all these options, and then I was pretty close to getting to that support person that I needed to speak with, and then I had to hang up. So of course I hung up and took the call that I needed to take. And then after I wrapped up, I called back again, and I was thinking, oh, great, now I have to put in all these options again. But to my delight, when I called back, instead of hearing the typical prompts of, press 1 for this or 2 for that, what I actually heard was a prompt that said, it looks like you recently called but had to hang up. Would you like us to put you back in the same place where you were before? And my mind was blown. I'm like, holy crap, I never experienced something like that. And I've experienced the type in your number and we'll call you when you get close to the queue type of thing, but I had never experienced this where they said you had to hang up, but we'll put you back because it was just quite recent. And I have never experienced that. Here I am talking about it. And I'm not even talking about the fact that the bank is great or that has good interest rates or a good, mobile app experience or whatnot. But this particular thing, makes me think of this particular bank in a completely different light. I'm talking about it because I was delighted. And that is an example of where they kind of nailed it in terms of those top 3 layers, right? Of they let me live the best life I could live in a very small way, of course, without having to feel like I'm wasting time sitting on the phone again and waiting. And they're making me feel very happy and relaxed about the fact that that stress I was feeling about calling and having to wait again has gone away. And that was an excellent experience. It's a very small thing, but for a bank that competes on interest rates and whatnot, they don't have a lot of leverage because that arbitrage of interest rates can only take you so far. And what they've done is focus their strategy on delivering a great experience, down to simple things like when people call in, what do they go through? So that's a great, for me, it was a great example of the kind of thing I talk about when I say let's deliver delight. And that doesn't cost a lot of money, right? It's probably available in your IVR systems today to do something like that. So it was a great example of delivering delight, but it was also a great example of little things that can do that, but have a very disproportionate impact on the mindset of the customer. So moving on, what are some ideas and practices that I think people can put into place to deliver delight? Some of these we are doing at Workiva ourselves. Some of these are aspirational, but I bucket them really into three categories. One is personalization. I think we've all heard, the benefits of personalizing your experience for customers, and that customers these days want more personalization and want to feel like you really know them. There's appreciation, and then lastly, I call this bucket intervention. And I'm not limiting these just to customers. I think this can also be done across your partners as well as your employees. In fact, some of these we are doing with our employees as well. And there's plenty of research and data that says that if you have happy and delighted employees, you will have happy and delighted customers, and that the probability of that goes up. So it's equally important to also think about these things in terms of delivering delight, not only from an external customer standpoint, but also for your employees. And for a lot of us that are support leaders, that are members of the support function, we know that support is not an easy thing to do. It's you're dealing with a lot of stress and unhappiness from customers. You're dealing with a lot of repetition, volume, timelines and urgencies. So thinking about your employees and how to delight them as well, I think is equally important. So what are we doing, and what are some of these ideas? Things like tailoring support experiences that leverage information about the inquirer or the company, right? This is kind of the most basic level, which is when you're answering a support call, knowing who's calling in, greeting them by their first name, saying, thank you for being a customer since this day. And again, that type of information is available to us in our systems today with fairly easy integrations, and just incorporating that is an idea of how you might make that real. Personalized usage-based learning recommendations for complex software SaaS platforms like ours. We are also bringing in information about what are people doing from a training and learning standpoint, and using that information while we're speaking with them, so that we have more empathy about what their level of knowledge or information is, and we don't kind of come across as, hey, you should know this, right? Or this is fairly obvious information. So being nuanced about how you talk to customers, and we've all heard that empathy matters, but giving a little bit more structure to that empathy with information and knowledge in the background that you can use that's one of those examples where we're looking at how well trained or informed is this customer or inquirer that's calling in. Also, tailoring specific flows for product for partners that are calling in, based on what type of partner they are, how many customers do they have. Yes, you might say that's actually disappointment avoidance because you're trying to give the right support to the right partner. But here, the idea is not about segmenting the partner and giving them the right routing of support, but rather, again, giving them access to learning management and other training information based on the interaction, to say, hey, based on what we talked about, here's some recommendation for free learning and courses that we have that you can look at. which is not only solving the case and kind of closing the book on that, but also delighting them with some additional information that they can use that is very tailored to the experience that you just had with them. So those are some ideas of sort of personalizing and delivering delight that way by using all the information and data and by marrying different aspects of the interaction data with the folks that you're interacting with. On the appreciation side, I've put some examples here of what we've done from an employee standpoint, as well as customer and partner. For employees, we've talked a lot about, I'm sure it's quite common that people would reward their employees for a job well done, right? There's the compensation and incentive pay structure. Maybe there's spot bonus structures. Those are all good. But giving an employee, for example, a well-designed LinkedIn badge that they can use to showcase when they have gone above and beyond, or when they have done something that is out of the ordinary, or when they have innovated, besides an email to the team and function to say, hey, good job and thank you, and recognizing them internally, giving them something that is a marker or an indicator of the value that they've delivered that they can take with them externally, I think goes a long way. Because if I ask all of you, or if I ask you to think of examples of when did you really feel great about a job well done at work, it's about when you were recognized, for sure. But these days, the ability to share those markers in social ways and in professional networks is equally important. And it gives people a lot of delight from kind of spreading that love and sharing it with others. So that's an example where we've created these LinkedIn badges on top of the standard sort of recognition, monetary benefits. And again, this doesn't really cost much, and it's a very basic thing for which we have systems and tools available at most of our companies today. Obviously, recognizing champions of customers and partners at advisory boards. If you don't have advisory boards, I highly recommend that you get those in place, because that's a great forum, obviously, to exchange information back and forth, but also to really reward and give exclusive benefits to the customers and partners that are really helping you move the needle in meaningful ways. And that also goes a long way in terms of building that attitudinal loyalty towards your brand. On the intervention side, these are probably more aspirational, some future things to think about. One of the common things for SaaS platforms is that we use partners to implement our software, right? And oftentimes we ask these partners to go through certifications, through trainings, through reaching certain levels before they're ready to go implement and be successful. But what if we could introduce co-pilots, for example, that understand what these partners are doing, that understand patterns of decisions and implementation choices that are made that typically result in bad outcomes for the customer or the end user, and intervenes and stops partners from doing those things. I think partners would love that. In fact, we're working on an idea like this to see what we can do within our platform. But that this idea of co-pilots really has taken off in the last, I'll say, 6 months. But using that concept of co-pilots in ways that deliver delight beyond simply the usage of the product and assistance, I think I haven't put any ideas here that are like that, but I would really encourage you to think about, what can a co-pilot do that goes beyond feature functionality assistance? And I think it's kind of a green field of, potential ideas there. So obviously there's lots of things that we can do here. These are just a few of my thoughts and ideas bucketed into 3 categories. And I encourage all of you to, think similarly and ask yourselves what you can be doing in your own space. And, with everything, there's this idea that you do want to measure it to know that you are getting better. And how do you measure delivering delight? That's a typical question I get. I think it really depends on your situation. But if you want it to be super simple, you can simply count the number of things that you're doing to deliver delight. You don't have to have a before and after benchmark of, hey, the customer effort score used to be this way and now it is this. Yes, you can count that and count the difference and say, by improving the effort or lowering the burden on the customer, I'm delivering delight. That's perfectly a legitimate way to measure that. And again, I want to reiterate that this is a personal thing for your business and for your customer base or your employee and partner base. And you have to decide what are the things that you're trying to solve in terms of a problem or an opportunity, and work backwards from that and ask yourself, what does solving this look like? But then also, what does delivering delight look like? And then count those things that are markers of delivering delight in terms of creating a measurement framework. For me, simply in my function, all I'm doing is saying, what are the number of practices we have implemented in this last quarter that actually delivered delight? And by objectifying the framework of saying this is a delight activity versus this is a avoid disappointment effort, you can have a numerator and denominator and say, how much have we done in each bucket? And are we truly balanced or not? And at the end of the day, you want this equation of delivering delight ratio to practices for avoiding disappointment to be greater than 1. And that's how we focus. So introducing an IVR change that you believe will enable delight for the customer, you get 1 notch in the numerator, right? If you have released a feature or a fix for a bug that is annoying, to me that's 1 notch on the denominator. Sorry, the previous was the numerator, and this would be the denominator, right? You get the idea. So to keep it simple, you can just start out by tracking how much are we doing in each of these buckets, or if you're more mature and further along and have certain metrics that you have classified as delivery delight metrics, you can certainly benchmark and see how you're doing on a before and after basis on that. Excellent. So in closing, I'll say that focusing both on avoidance of disappointment as well as delivery of delight is, in my opinion, the right balanced approach to getting great outcomes and to getting happy, delighted customers. And I wish for all of you to have more customers that are looking and feeling this way. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sri. Appreciate it. Appreciate you and all the information that you gave us. Let's give him a pound, give him thumbs up, whatever you want to do. Thank you, Sri. That's great. I'm going to stop the recording.